Greetings. Today we will talk about Portugal. Portugal is a country located on the Iberian Peninsula in southwestern Europe, and whose territory also includes the Macaronesian archipelagos of the Azores and Madeira. It features the westernmost point in continental Europe, and its Iberian portion is bordered to the west and south by the Atlantic Ocean and to the north and east by Spain, the sole country to have a land border with Portugal. In total, the country occupies an area of 92,090 square kilometers, 35,560 square miles. The population of Portugal is over 10,200,000 as of 2024, based on Worldometer elaboration of the latest United Nations data. Lisbon is the capital and largest city by population, being also the main spot for tourists alongside Porto and Algarve. Lisbon is one of the oldest cities in the world and the second oldest European capital city, after Athens, predating other modern European capitals by centuries. Lisbon is one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, filled with stunning architecture, gorgeous museums, delicious cuisine, and unique attractions. As Lisbon is built on 7 hills, there is no shortage of beautiful viewpoints and panoramas over the city. Apart from the official viewpoints, known as miradouros, there are many rooftop bars and restaurants with great views. Some of the best Lisbon miradouros include Santa Luzia and Miradouro da Graça. Portugal's unique charm stems from its rich cultural heritage, diverse landscapes, and warm, welcoming people. It's home to ancient castles, beautiful beaches, and vibrant cities, each with a unique character. Portugal is renowned for its fado music, port wine, and a cuisine that is a seafood lover's delight. Portugal has had a profound cultural, architectural, and linguistic influence, with a legacy of around 250 million Portuguese speakers around the world. It is a developed country with an advanced economy. A member of the United Nations, the European Union, the Schengen area, and the Council of Europe. Portugal was one of the founding members of NATO, the Eurozone, the OECD, and the Community of Portuguese Language Countries. For those who venture beyond the coast, Portugal is full of treasures and beauties and has one of the most important heritage in Europe with castles straight out of children's tales. Put on your armor and dive into the history of the Knights Templar to discover the castles of the first kings of Portugal. Penha Palace, a Romanticist castle in Sintra. The Penha Palace stands on top of a hill in the mountains, overlooking the town of Sintra. The 19th century palace is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the 7 wonders of Portugal. Quinta da Regaleira Palace, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Sintra. Quinta da Regaleira is a romantic palace and chapel, featuring a royal-like park with lakes, wells, fountains, and more. Designed by Italian architect Luigi Manina in the 1800s, the design includes enigmatic buildings that are related to alchemy, masonry, and the Knights Templar. The design evokes Roman, Gothic, Renaissance, and Manueline styles. Palacio da Bolsa, national monument, located in the historical center of the city. The Palacio da Bolsa, built by the Porto Commercial Association on the ruins of the St. Francis Convent, has become by excellence the Porto city's drawing room, welcoming the most illustrious visitors, amongst which are monarchs, presidents, and ministers from almost every country, transforming this building into the most visited monument in the northern Portugal. Brejoeira Palace. Sintra National Palace, and so many more. But palaces are not the only beauty that Portugal has. Portugal is not a large country, but it offers a great diversity of physical geography, ranging from low-lying coasts and plains to the Estrela Mountains, which rise to nearly 6,500 feet, 2,000 meters. With its Atlantic coast and Mediterranean climate, the country is scrappier than Spain and wilder than France. Its charm is in its reluctance to be too polished, and Portugal's prettiest places are raw, real, and natural. An extensive coastline with soft golden sand on every beach, a long summer and plenty of sunshine all year round make Portugal an obvious choice as a holiday destination. The best beaches in Portugal can be found dotted throughout the country, and while catching a wave is easy on the many vast stretches of water and their famous breakers, there are hidden pockets of tranquility where you'll find still, crystal clear water for wading in and paddling. Portugal boasts some of the best weather in Europe, offering plenty of summer sunshine and mild to cold winters, depending on location. Weather in Portugal is temperate and influenced by the Atlantic Ocean. The climate is cool and wet in the north and central regions, but moving south, it becomes drier and warmer. So, castles, beaches. What else is Portugal famous for? With a long tradition of winemaking, Portugal is among the world's top 10 producers. The vast quantity of native grape varieties, more than 250, allows the production of a great diversity of wines with very distinct personalities. Portugal is one of the countries on the list of the world's great wine producers. The most well-known wine region in Portugal is the Douro Valley. This rich river gorge just outside the city of Porto hugs the Douro River and is famous for its port wines. The wines produced here have become legendary. In fact, UNESCO recently designated the valley a World Heritage. Let me introduce to you the best and most charming places for my opinion in this wonderful country. Let me know in comments if you agree with me. Perched picturesquely above the river Mondego, historic Coimbra was once the medieval capital of Portugal. It's also home to one of the oldest universities in Europe. Founded in the 13th century in a former royal palace, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site with a lavishly decorated Biblioteca Joanina, an 18th century library, and beautiful botanic garden to boot. But most alluring is how Coimbra's grand heritage goes hand in hand with the spirited soul of a student city. This blend of tradition and fresh-faced optimism culminates in Queima das Fitas, the burning of the ribbons, in May, which marks the end of the academic year. This week-long festival of parades, music and merrymaking, including the ritual burning of each faculty's traditional ribbons, always draws the crowds, but Coimbra's cobbled lanes and bars are full of youthful energy throughout the academic year. Visit during term time to experience the best of this buzz. Porto. Much like Lisbon, the city of Porto has grown in popularity over recent years and found itself a bit of a weekend-away wonder. Its ascent of the travel charts is reflected in the streets, where new venues regularly join its impressive roster of restaurants and shops, and in the skies, where cranes stand tall below a busy flight path. Despite plenty of development, Porto has retained its charm. Whether rambling along the riverbank of the Douro, taking in the panoramic vistas from the top of the Clérigos Tower, or savoring sunset at the Moro Garden, beauty abounds in Porto. Come ready to walk, because this stunner is best seen on foot and the steps and steep alleys call for comfortable shoes. The medieval town of Abidos is one of the most picturesque and well-preserved in Portugal. Quite close to the capital and located on high ground near the Atlantic coast, Abidos has had a strategic importance in the territory. It had already been settled prior to the Romans' arrival in the Iberian Peninsula, and the town prospered after being chosen by the royal family. King Dinis offered it to his wife, Queen Isabel, in the 13th century, and it became part of Casa das Rainhas, Queen's estate, who improved and enriched it throughout the various dynasties. This is one of the main reasons for the high concentration of churches in this small place. You will find a well-preserved castle within the walls and a maze of streets and white houses that are a delight to stroll amongst. Along with the manuline porticos, the colorful window boxes and the small squares, many fine examples of religious and civil architecture from the town's golden days provide a host of reasons for making a visit. Cascais. Situated close to the sea and traditionally a fishing village, Cascais enjoyed an important period of development in the 14th century when it was a major stopping-off point for boats on their way to Lisbon, turning it into a very busy port at that time. It was, however, in the second half of the 19th century, when sea bathing became a popular activity, that Cascais was given the impetus that transformed it into a very fashionable summer resort. The great driving force behind this transformation was the King of Portugal, Dom Luís I, who, in 1870, converted the Fortaleza da Cidadela into the summer residence of the Portuguese monarchy. The king's example was immediately copied by the nobility, who built palaces and extremely beautiful villas in the town, where they spent the hottest season of the year, completely transforming the appearance of the former fishing village. Portugal was the world's first maritime power and the birthplace to some of the world's first explorers. Portugal was at the forefront of European exploration in the 15th and 16th centuries. During the Age of Discovery, Ferdinand Magellan became the first person to circumnavigate the globe. Vasco da Gama discovered the sea route to India, and Bartholomew Diaz was the first to sail around the southern tip of Africa. He called this the Cape of Good Hope. Finally, Alvarez Cabral and others discovered new lands, including Brazil, parts of Africa, and the Far East, and claimed them for Portugal. Around 81% of Portugal's population are Roman Catholics. Christianity first came to Portugal when it was part of the Roman Empire. Church and state were separate since the days of the First Republic, 1920 to 1926. However, Catholic moral and legal codes have a deep foundation, while most traditional festivals and fairs have religious origins. According to the 2011 census, 81% of people that live in Portugal are Catholic. The Vasco da Gama Bridge is a cable-stayed bridge flanked by viaducts that spans the Tagus River in Parque das Nações in Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. It is the longest bridge in the European Union. It was built to alleviate the congestion on Lisbon's 25 de Abril bridge and eliminate the need for traffic between the country's northern and southern regions to pass through the capital city. Construction began in February 1995. The bridge was opened to traffic on the 29th of March 1998, just in time for Expo 98, the World's Fair that celebrated the 500th anniversary of the discovery by Vasco da Gama of the sea route from Europe to India. Tourists flocked to famous tram. The technical specifications impress tram enthusiasts. The overall look inspires selfie lovers. All along the route, tourists pose to snap shots with the tram from every angle. On a trip to Lisbon, a good tram selfie is obligatory. The small two-axle trams with a wheelbase of only 1.90 meters and a length of 8.35 meters are packed all day long. Long queues build at the final stops, as tourists wait to ride the length of the route while filming from the moving vehicle. Why this tram in particular? The design allows the windows to be opened completely, so passengers can lean their heads out. This is not without its risks, as the track often passes just a few centimeters away from the walls of houses. Caution is advised. The tram in Lisbon has some unique features. It runs on narrow-gauge tram lines of just 900 millimeters, takes curves with radii under 10 meters, and negotiates gradients of up to 13.5%, which is a world record for trams. Portuguese had 54 kings. The Kingdom of Portugal was a monarchy in the Western Iberian Peninsula and the predecessor of the modern Portuguese Republic. Existing to various extents between 1139 and 1910, it was also known as the Kingdom of Portugal and the Algarves after 1415, and as the United Kingdom of Portugal, Brazil and the Algarves between 1815 and 1822. The name is also often applied to the Portuguese Empire, the realm's overseas colonies. There were two queens, Maria I and Maria II, in the 18th and 19th centuries. The rest were all kings. There were 6 kings called Afonso and 6 called João. From 1581 to 1640, Portugal was ruled by neighboring Spain under 3 kings called Felipe. The dates in brackets are the lifespans of each monarch. Wonderful, wonderful Portugal! Here are some more interesting facts about Portugal. Portugal is one of the oldest nations in Europe. The borders of the nation of Portugal were defined in 1139, making it not only one of the oldest nations in the world but arguably in all of Europe. Portugal appointed King Afonso Henriques as its king that year. Fun fact: Lisbon is actually 4 centuries older than Rome. Before it was known as Portugal, the territory had been settled by various empires and civilizations, such as by the Phoenicians in 1200 BC. Portugal is one of the most peaceful countries. In 2021, Portugal came in 4th place on the Global Peace Index, making it one of the most peaceful countries in the world, behind Iceland, New Zealand, and Denmark. Portugal is thus one of the safest countries in the world with little violence. Portugal's colonial empire spanned 600 years, the longest lived of the modern European empires. At its height, Portugal's empire stretched across what are now 53 different countries. Brazil achieved independence in 1822, while all of Portugal's African colonies were independent by the end of 1975. Portugal transferred its last colony, Macau, to China in 1999 after 442 years of occupation. Portugal was the first European nation to participate in the transatlantic slave trade. As a major colonial power, Portugal was a major player in the global slave trade, taking slaves from Western Africa to the Americas. It was also the first colonial power to abolish slavery, some 50 years before Britain, Spain, France, and the United States. There are over 250 million Portuguese speakers around the globe. Portuguese is one of the 10 most spoken languages in the world, with over 250 million Portuguese speakers around the globe. Portuguese is the official language in 9 countries including Brazil, Mozambique, Angola, Portugal, Guinea-Bissau, East Timor, Equatorial Guinea, Macau, Cape Verde, and São Tomé and Príncipe. Therefore, it's not that surprising that only 5% of Portuguese speakers live in Portugal. Portugal is Europe's most westerly point. On the mainland of continental Europe, the westernmost point is at Cabo da Roca, a cape located in the town of Sintra. If you include continental Europe's islands, Portugal is still the westernmost country. The westernmost place on the Eurasian plate is Cape Linos, a volcano in the Azores. Although Portugal is home to the westernmost points in Europe, it isn't the most westerly point in the European Union. That honor lies with France, whose overseas collectivity of Saint Martin lies in the Caribbean. Portugal holds the record for the shortest reigning monarch in the world. Crown Prince Luís Felipe was the King of Portugal for a grand total of 20 minutes after his father Carlos I was assassinated on the 1st of February 1908. After suffering injuries in the same attack, Luís Felipe also died and the title of king was transferred to Manuel II, the last king of Portugal. Lisbon suffered one of the world's largest natural disasters in world history. On November 1, 1755, an earthquake hit Lisbon, destroying almost the entirety of the city. Seismologists estimate the earthquake had a magnitude of 7.7 or more. The earthquake generated a 6-meter-high tsunami that caused many to drown. The death toll in Lisbon was between 12,000 and 60,000 people, making it one of the deadliest earthquakes in history. Portugal is a world leader in renewable energy. By July 2014, around 70% of its energy came from renewable sources such as wind, hydro, and solar power. The country has actually shown in recent years that Portugal can meet all domestic electricity needs with renewable sources. One of the world's largest photovoltaic farms is near the town of Moura. Innovative projects include a floating wind farm, the wind float, and wave roller, which converts the movement of ocean waves to energy and electricity. Portugal decriminalized all drugs in 2001, the first country in the world to do so. On July 1, 2001, Portugal became the first country in the world to decriminalize all drugs, including meth and heroin. The law made drug possession for personal use legally prohibited, while drug trafficking remains a criminal offense. The change in law was applied as a measure to fight the heightened drug epidemic of the 90s and the rise of HIV cases. Portugal now has some of the lowest drug usage rates in the European Union, EU, where most countries hold criminalization models. Portugal is one of the best places in the world to retire. Portugal is one of the best places in the world to retire, according to the International Living's annual Global Retirement Index and Forbes. With a low cost of living and tax incentives, retirees come from all over the world to settle down in Portugal. Retirees can make use of the NHR regime, a quality healthcare system, and an all-around high standard of living.